everybody basically in the world at this point is always wanting to know like what happened. The stepfather was always a prime suspect right off the beginning. A lot of speculation is you killed the kids. Come out and say it straight as it is. I know the truth. I didn't kill Lily and Jack.
2 children, 1 quiet home, and a confession that would send shockwaves through the entire country. You weren't there when it happened, but you're here now. That means something. So if you care about the truth, if you believe these children deserve justice, then stay. Subscribe. Follow this story, because what happened to Lily and Jack should haunt all of us. May 2nd, 2025. It was just after 5 p.m. when Malahia Brooks Murray, their mother, noticed the silence. No footsteps, no giggles, no rustling in the kitchen. She called for them. No answer. She searched every room. Nothing. Then she screamed for Daniel, her partner, the children's stepfather. He searched the house again, then the yard, then the street. Nothing. By 5:43 p.m., 911 had been called. Within the hour, police were combing the property. By nightfall, a full-scale search was underway. Helicopters, drones, infrared scans, K9 units. Over 180 tips would pour in over the next 2 weeks. But none led to Lily or Jack. A small blanket was recovered near the edge of the woods, and a faint boot print child-sized pressed into the muddy ground. But no other trace of them was ever found. We were about to have supper, and then nothing. That's what their mother told investigators. Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather, quickly became a central figure in the investigation. He gave up his phone, volunteered for a polygraph, requested a drug test. He insisted he had nothing to hide. And for a while, the public believed him. But the Royal Canadian Mounted Police didn't stop asking questions. They conducted 35 interviews, analyzed every movement, and what began as a missing persons case began to feel like something far darker, because behind Daniel's calm cooperation, something was unraveling. He had insisted on his innocence, and then he confessed. What Daniel Martell said in that interview room changed everything. For the next 10 days, Nova Scotia became a province on edge. Search teams worked through the night and scoured the woods. Helicopters traced riverbanks, and K9 units tracked scents into dead ends. Infrared imaging detected nothing. No movement. No bodies. No sign of Lily or Jack. The initial urgency gave way to dread, and by the second week, officials began to speak quietly, carefully, about recovery, not rescue. Staff Sergeant Rob McCannon said it plainly. The chances of survival were becoming very low, but not everyone was ready to give up, least of all Daniel Martell. He remained in front of cameras, soft-spoken, composed, measured. I handed over my phone. I requested a lie detector and drug tests. I want to help find them, he told reporters. He didn't wait for questions, he volunteered information before it was asked. To some, it looked like cooperation. To others, it looked like control. Behavioral analysts were brought in behind the scenes. They noted his posture, his phrasing, his near-perfect alignment with law enforcement requests. One profiler suggested Daniel wasn't trying to aid the investigation. He was trying to outpace it. He may have been anxious, but not frantic. Cooperative, but curiously rehearsed. It raised a question no one wanted to say out loud. Was this the profile of a man desperate to find his stepchildren? Or desperate to hide something? Was the confession still days away a cry of guilt? Or a breakdown under pressure? Behind every lead, every press conference, every theory, were 2 children. Lily, age 6. Jack, age 4. She was curious, imaginative, a talker. He was all energy and hugs.
They loved sidewalk chalk, bedtime stories, grilled cheese, the kind of children who filled a house with sound. Now, the silence was deafening. The community rallied. Volunteers showed up with maps, flashlights, boots. They followed every rumor, every shape in the trees. Over 180 tips came in, and so did the comments. Social media turned savage, some pointing fingers at the parents, others demanding arrests. Supportive messages clashed with accusations. The story was no longer just about the missing. It was about blame. But police didn't flinch. They knew something others didn't. Because while the public watched Daniel Martell act calm and composed, investigators had already seen the cracks. And then, in a twist no one saw coming, Daniel did something they had long questioned. He confessed. The room was dim. Just two people, an investigator, and Daniel Martell. For over an hour, the questions came gently, then firmly, then relentlessly. Daniel stayed still, measured. He asked for water. He wiped his hands on his jeans. And then something shifted. He looked down. What follows is a dramatized reconstruction based on internal sources and hypothetical interpretations. I never wanted to hurt them, he said. I thought if they stayed still, they'd come back. But I lost control. In that moment, silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't the silence of missing children. It was the silence before a storm. The confession, if genuine, changed everything. And within hours, the outside world erupted. Camera crews flooded the street. News alerts blared across every network. Police statements shifted from cautious to stunned. The public had been watching Daniel play the role of grieving stepfather. Now, they were watching him fall apart. Investigators scrambled. They reviewed every phone ping, every movement log. The polygraph results, once sealed, were now under a microscope. Sound recordings from the initial interview were reanalyzed. And online, amateur sleuths jumped in. Forensic hobbyists picked apart Daniel's digital footprint. Inconsistencies emerged, gaps in timestamps, deleted messages, altered search history. Every shred of data became a new thread in a rapidly unraveling story. Psychological experts were brought in to interpret what came next. According to Dr. Iris Rendell, a forensic psychologist familiar with high-profile confessions, Daniel's behavior exhibits classic signs of narcissistic vulnerability, overcompliance, exaggerated control, emotional detachment masking severe internal instability. She added, his cooperation may have been a facade designed to allay suspicion while masking his deepest fears. But for the family, no clinical explanation could dull the pain. Lily and Jack's mother, Malahia, released a short public statement. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. He chose to destroy everything we loved. This was more than betrayal. It was devastation, layered, personal, permanent. But just as the public braced for justice, the story took yet another turn. Because when the trial began, even the confession itself was questioned, and the courtroom would reveal far more than guilt or innocence. The trial of Daniel Martell began 6 months after his confession. The prosecution opened with certainty. They had his words on record. They had hours of behavioral inconsistencies, digital footprints, deleted files, and misaligned timelines. They had motive. They argued control, rage, an unraveling mind. But the defense was just as fierce. They claimed the confession had been coerced, that Daniel was emotionally broken, mentally exhausted, that no lawyer had been present, that no bodies had been found, no murder weapon, no physical evidence tying him to a crime, only words spoken in the dark. For 3 weeks, the courtroom listened. Witnesses testified. Experts debated. A community watched in breathless silence. And then, the verdict came. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Unanimous. The judge called Daniel Martell's actions irreparably devastating. He was sentenced to life in prison, with no parole eligibility for 18 years. But justice is rarely so clean, because the bodies of Lily and Jack were never recovered. Their final moments never known. No physical proof. No burial. No goodbye. And so, the questions refused to die. Was Daniel's confession a window into guilt? Or a mirror reflecting pressure, confusion, and collapse? Some in the community believe the children were taken, hidden. That Daniel, while unstable, may have taken the fall for someone else. Others whisper about CPS failures, visits never made, calls never followed up. About a media circus that demanded a villain before the facts were clear. A psychologist interviewed after the trial put it this way: "The human mind craves closure, even false closure. That's the danger. And that danger remains. Left with an empty house, a missing pair of shoes, a toy that no longer moves. There is no healing without truth, and no truth without answers. So we ask still, for Lily and Jack, wherever they are, what really happened that May Day? And will we ever know?"